Hello, 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 and thank you all once again for joining and tuning in to my podcast, Outside the Box, where I aim to help people see that God is bigger than the boxes that we usually put Him in. I'm having a little bit of trouble with my lighting today. I'm having some electrical problems in the house, and so the maintenance people are supposed to come by and fix it. I have somebody come out and look at it, but they haven't done so yet, so it looks kind of dark and yeah. Anyway, so I'll try to do my best to fix the issue, but this is where I'm at for now. So, but anyway, so today I want to talk about a very hot topic, so to speak. It is about Christians and marijuana. But before I get into that, just let me say that you can catch my show on Saturdays. I'm sorry, Fridays at 11 now. I might change the time again. I know I'm kind of being a little bit all over the place with that, but my kids just started back school and I'm trying to figure out what's the best time to do it. And so maybe I'm going to probably try the 11 o'clock for a couple of weeks and see how that works. If not, I might consider changing the time again. But anyway, you can catch my show for now today at 11, and then I will do 11 next week and see how that goes. And you can also follow me on social media. Make sure you subscribe, share, like my page, share my content with those, especially those you think might be in need of it. But I'm on YouTube, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Twitter, and then I'm on Facebook. So yeah, and I'm also on LinkedIn, but I don't really sorry, I don't really go to LinkedIn very much, but I am on there. So yeah, you can also, I do have a website as well. A lot of times I do not mention that, but my website is www.unveilingthespirit.com. And that website is not only where my podcast is, but also my books, my coaching, my courses. So if anybody's interested in learning more about that, you can follow me. Check out my website. So, but anyway, so also you can watch me on the Google Play Store or the Apple Store through a app called the Entertainment Theater. The app is for independent creators. And so you guys make sure you download that and check it out as well. And you can also get that app on the Roku. So, but yeah, so that's it for my little spiel. Making sure you guys like, follow, share, subscribe, things like that. Support what I'm doing. I would appreciate it. So yeah, so I wanted to talk about marijuana and Christianity because I live in Minnesota, and just recently Minnesota legalized marijuana, made it legal to smoke. I don't know all the stipulations about how much you can have, how much you can't have, but now you can do it recreationally. And I know you still can't drive because that's considered driving under the influence. But for the most part, it's become legal, and it's very reasonable to expect that over time it's going to become legal throughout the U.S. And it's weird because federally it's still illegal. So legally in the state is legal in the state, but federally it's not, which is weird. It just shows you confusing nature of the world. But yeah, and so I've had a few conversations over the years about what do I think about marijuana as a Christian, as a person, as a Christian, because sometimes those opinions are not the same. And I think we need to understand when those opinions are not the same, because a lot of times people think that all of their opinions are gospel, and they're not. And you can have your opinion, but still understand the difference between your opinion and what God expects and requires of us, and submit to that and be obedient to that, even if it doesn't line up with your opinion. So we get into a lot of trouble with as people when we mix our opinion with the gospel, and we think that God is approving or validating whatever we think or whatever we feel, when that's not the case. We need to know when to, for lack of a better word, sit down and be quiet. So yeah. um, so anyway, so yeah, so marijuana just became legal here in Minnesota, and conversations have come up, and so I feel like it would be a good thing for me to talk about because I don't know if it's more popular. Sometimes it seems like stuff is becoming more popular because of the internet. So like before, when we had all this, you see the police brutalizing black people, killing black people, not just the police, but just in general. And it seems like you're seeing more of it now. And it's like, oh my goodness, what is happening? This stuff has always been going on. It's just that because of the internet and because of social media and things like that, people have more access to know when these things are happening when they didn't know that they were happening before. Because especially when you have the whites that's kind of in control of all the media and everything like that, they can easily just keep this stuff out of the news. Of course, it's getting harder to do that, but the internet and everybody having computers in their pockets definitely does not make that easier. It makes it harder to control that type of information. So weed has been around for a while. It is not new, but it seems like it's becoming more popular. But I don't know if that's just because the internet is constantly having it in your faces. But I would be surprised if somebody commented on here and told me that they know somebody, of all their friends and family, none of them smoke weed. Nobody. I would be surprised. I find that people smoke weed. It's like pandemic, pandemic of weed smoker. Like I'm saying, like if there's a lot of people that smoke weed, and so I just it's very popular, and people do it for different reasons. Some people do it for medical reasons. Some people do it for just, I don't want to say bodily reasons because that doesn't sound really smart, but like some people do it to sleep. So people have all their different reasons for doing it, and of course you have a large chunk of people that do it recreationally. And so I've had the question proposed to me a few times if smoking weed is a sin. Some people say that it's not because weed comes from the earth. Well, we come from the earth and we still sin. So that is not necessarily a good argument. If you really want to take that argument thoroughly, like even the cocaine plant, where it comes from, that comes from the earth. So you can't, even alcohol comes from fruits and stuff. So you can't say that just because something comes from the earth, that automatically makes it good. People come from the earth and we can be as wicked as it comes. So that's not a good argument. So throw that one out the window. That one doesn't work. It doesn't hold water. So the question is if it's a sin or not, to me, comes down to what benefit, what effect does it have on your life? Because that's basically the nutshell of sin, is that what is it producing? What is it adding to your life? How is it changing your life? And so when you look at stuff like that, you can kind of gauge a little bit more clearly if something is a sin or not when you see the fruit of what that thing is bringing about. And so, the Bible talks a lot about fruit. It says you will know Christians by their fruit, and the fruit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, gentleness, self-control. I forgot if I'm missing any. And then it says, against such there is no law. So if you have all of these characteristics in yourself, you don't have to worry about the law because you're fulfilling the law by embodying the fruit of the spirit. And so fruit of something is really, really important. And you have to learn how to pay attention to people's fruit. Even the Bible says, don't believe everything, or don't believe everybody, but test the spirit by the spirit and see if it's from God. So if you have the spirit, you can use your spirit to test their spirit. And if you test their spirit and it resonates with your spirit and the fruit comes out, the fruit of the spirit comes out, then you know that there's a Christian. But if you test their spirit and some fruit comes out that is not of the spirit, which is love, joy, then you like, oh, okay, like, yeah, I know you're not a Christian or you're not a mature Christian and you need more space and time to grow to understand what those things mean. And it's not always easy to know the difference between those things, but that's again where patience comes in, and gentleness and self-control comes in, because you give people the grace and the space to grow in the ways that they need to, instead of just judging them and making it seem as if they're not perfect Christians right now, that, you know, whatever. So I hope you know where I'm going with that thought. So again, you look at marijuana and you say, what is it bringing about in your life? What fruit is it producing? And based on that alone, I can say that I think smoking weed is a sin under most circumstances. If you're doing it recreationally, simply to get high, I would say automatically it is a sin. Christians should not be getting high. I know a lot of people. I know people who are Christians that smoke weed, and they think that it's fine. But I know Christians who smoke cigarettes and all that type of stuff, and so they think that it's okay. But for the first thing is that it's damaging your body. So God says our temple is to be respected, to be taken care of. The body is very, very important, very sophisticated, and it's not right for us, God, to give us this body and for us to misuse it and things like that. You can look at that in any situation. Like if you want to bring it down to like an earthly level, if you gave your kid a keys to a brand new car, do you want them smoking in the car? Do you want them putting their junk in the car? Like, you know, when God gives you something very valuable, it is a natural expectation that for you to take care of it, because it shows you respected, you respect what he's giving you, you understand his value. So he's giving us very, very sophisticated bodies. I mean, they're amazing, fragile, but amazing at the same time. And for you to not take care of your body is a problem, and in some cases is a sin. So yeah, you should be taking care of your body, and putting smoke in your lungs is not taking care of your body. So that's the first thing. So over time, because people say, well, it's not as addictive as some of the other stuff. God does not. That is a human way of seeing it. God does not say, well, if it's not addictive, you can do it. But if that is not a criteria that God has for drug use, is how addictive it is. So you have to understand, again, get outside of your opinion about stuff and look at God's what God says about it, and not always thinking that the two are the same. Because my opinion, I can say, yeah, it's not addictive. It's definitely better than a crack, of course, but that doesn't make it right, because right is determined by God, not me. So anyway, so the first thing is that it's damaging your body, and you should be taking care of your body. Again, I can pull out ample scriptures, and again, somebody asked me a while ago, like, why don't I put scriptures up on the screen and stuff like that? I don't want to do that because I don't want this to be like a Bible study. I want it to be a conversation. And when I'm conversating with people, I don't just start quoting scriptures everywhere. It's like sometimes that's what makes Christians unrelatable, because now you're pulling out. I do, don't get me wrong, sometimes. But I'm going to talk to you like I'm talking to the average person. I'm not going to be like, I don't talk to the average person with my Bible in my hand and say, well, Proverbs 2:45. I don't do that. Like, anyway, I mean, I don't want to make it seem like I'm annoyed with people who do that, but I think that some people just, that's a different conversation. So the Bible has ample scriptures about the body, taking care of your body, what the body is. You have some people, especially a kind of or more older traditional Christian thought that the body is somehow evil. The body is not evil. What we do in the body is what makes it evil. The body in of itself is not evil. It's actually pretty ambivalent. It just wants what it wants. It's just not. It's a machine. It doesn't have a morality. It doesn't think. It doesn't process. It's just like, so for example, I look at my cat, and she's just programmed to take care of her needs. She doesn't, it's not something that she sits up and thinks about, like, oh, I wonder if I kill that mouse over there, if his mother's going to cry. Like, she does not think like that. She says, there's a mouse. I want to attack. My predator instinct kicks in. I want to attack it and possibly eat it. Like, it's not a lot of thought, because it comes down to her wanting to eat or wanting to play or satisfying some type of need that she has. The human body is the same thing. It just operates. It digests food. It pumps blood. It pushes blood through your system. It processes, your bodily food. I mean, it just operates, and it will do that regardless of your thought processes or not. So, of course, when you bring the spirit in and you into the body, you are to dictate the faculties of that. But the body is just going to operate and do what it's designed to do outside of that. So that's how you can have people in comas, their body's still working because that's what it's designed to do. But it has no sense of morality, and all it seeks to do is to get its needs met. That's it. If I'm hungry, I need to eat. If I'm sleepy, I need to sleep. If I'm mad, I need to, so it just does what it needs. And so, and a lot of what the devil does when it comes to us is to try to get us to cater to that, the flesh, what it wants and what it needs, and throw out the morality, throw out our thought processes, and basically operate like a basic mental functioning animal, because animals do that. They just boop, boop, boop. Hey, it's mating season. Let me hump, go have a baby. Like they just kind of follow this thing. And we're more sophisticated than that. So we shouldn't be doing that. We have a brain, we can think. So, I kind of lost my train of thought. But so we shouldn't be getting high. So that's the first thing. We should not be damaging our bodies. And so that's the first thing that I would say that makes smoking weed a sin. Even about getting high, you should not be putting yourself in a diminished mental capacity state for any reason. As a Christian, if you're trusting God, if you're living for God, if you're using your brain the way you're supposed to use your brain, the Bible says be transformed by the renewing of your mind. You cannot renew your mind if you're high. Like you can't. And I know some people like, when I smoke, I have more clarity, stuff like that. That is, you can have clarity and not smoke. Like you can. You just have to seek God more, which is what God wants you to do. He does not want you to like, oh, the Bible says if any man lacks wisdom, let him ask God, not weed. So you ask God to help you. But if you put the weed in there, it gives you a buffer now so you don't have to seek God for that. And God wants us to seek him for the stuff that we need and we want and stuff like that. So that's another thing. It distracts you from God. Like it puts a buffer between your need for God, because if you sit with your need and stop trying to escape your need, because that's the main reason why people get high, you're not allowing the space for God to be active in your life, because now you have a need that you want him to fulfill. And so because of those kind of things, it's to me, it's a sin. Now, I do know some people smoke it for medical purposes, and believe it or not, opinion-wise, I'm okay with that. I really am, because some people, if they're not trying to just get high, and they actually need it for some medical purposes like pain and stuff like that, to me, that's a difference. So motive and your intention is very, very important when it comes to God. And you have to be honest with yourself about what your motive is, because some people make it seem like they need it for medical stuff and they don't. They're just using it as an excuse because they want to get high. Again, you should not be getting high. As a Christian, that should not be something that's in your regular daily life. You're making yourself more vulnerable. You're damaging your body. You are putting yourself you're putting a barrier between you and God to basically partner on stuff. So there's a lot of reasons why, as a Christian, you just should not be getting high. Let's not count the fact that in many circumstances it's dangerous, sometimes illegal. Like, there's a lot of stuff there that just brings a mess into your life that does not need to be there. But for people who are doing it for medical purposes, I think that that's different. Again, that's my opinion. I'm not exactly sure how God sees that, because I'm not in that situation to have to seek him to find out his answer for, okay, God, I have cancer. I've tried everything else. Nothing is working. Smoking helps, or I heard it helps, and I want to try this. Like, that's when you are in those personal situations between you and God, where you have to seek him and find out what he wants you to do in that situation. So I haven't been in that situation where I'm so sick and nothing else is working and I have to see God. I haven't sought God for the answer on that. But on the outskirts, just my opinion, I would say that it seems to be okay. If you need it for medical purposes, I think it should be okay. But again, you have to seek God for yourself to know if that's the case. He might give you some other ideas that you're not even thinking of and say, no, don't do that. Do this. You try this, try that. Or he can just heal you, and then you don't have to worry about that altogether. So I know some people might be watching this and like, well, have you ever smoked weed before? Maybe you don't even know what you're talking about. And I will tell you that I definitely used to be a weed smoker. I started smoking weed when I was about 18 years old because I was depressed all the time, which I talked about in my other videos. I struggled with depression a lot, most of my life, actually. And so in my teens, my late teens, and I would say early 20s, even 30s. For about 10 years or so, I struggled with depression very seriously. And so a classmate of mine saw how depressed I was all the time, and she suggested that I try smoking weed because she knows somebody else who's depressed all the time and they smoke weed and it helps them. So I was like, okay, I will try it. And so I tried it and it did help. And I continued to smoke. But it helped because it just gave me an escape from my problems, from my depression. That's it. It didn't actually fix the problem. And that's another thing why I think as a Christians we should not be smoking weed, because it's a band-aid solution. And it's my experience with God and his word, God doesn't do band-aid solutions. He wants to actually get to the root and fix the problem. But if you keep glossing over the problem just by getting high, getting high, getting high, you're never fixing it. And a problem that remains unresolved is something, a tool that the enemy can use to burrow his way into your life. So it gets much deeper than just, hey, I want to smoke weed. Is it legal? Is it not legal? Stuff like that. You have to understand spiritually what is going on underneath, because it's not just about that. God is trying to make you stronger to fight the enemy from destroying your life. So it's much deeper than that. So anyway, back to my weed story. So I started smoking when I was about 18. And again, it gave me an escape from my depression. I became really addicted to it, to the point where my habit got so expensive that it was better for me to sell it than keep buying it. Because if I sold it, and it was just to my friends and stuff like that, so don't think I was no big time drug dealer or anything. I was not. But it became more financially, me to be financially able to sustain my habits. I needed to make money instead of like constantly spending it on the weed. Um, so yeah, it was pretty bad. It got to the point where, because I'm pretty sure those of you who know anything about weed, you know about the munchies. And so that's why I say I understand people who are sick and maybe they don't have an appetite and they smoke weed to eat. Because if you smoke weed, for most people, you get the munchies and you will eat. Like, yeah, like food just tastes so much better when you have the munchies that it's almost a little added um, benefit of smoking, because now you get to enjoy food in a way that you typically don't. And so I would get the munchies and I would eat, and I would eat, I don't want to say a lot, but it got to the point where it was almost like I had an eating disorder, because I got to the point where I could not eat unless I was high. Like if I was not high and I tried to eat, food tasted disgusting to me. I did not even want it in my mouth. So I would lose a bunch of weight because I didn't want to eat unless I was high. And so I would have to eat, smoke at least several times a day to actually get my regular meals in there. So again, it goes back to damaging your body. Like this is not a normal way we're supposed to operate. It seriously felt like I had an eating disorder because I could not eat, but then I was high. Oh my goodness. I would like gorge myself. I would eat ice cream, cookies. Like, I mean, I would just eat a bunch of stuff. And it seriously seemed to me like in hindsight, like I had an eating disorder. So anyway, it began to control my life. My life revolved around smoking weed. When I woke up in the morning, before I did anything else, probably before I even washed my face, brushed my teeth, went to the bathroom, I needed to smoke. And then after that, I could eat. And then, of course, I'm enjoying my eating. And then, and it, money wise, it was like really damaging my pockets. I was spending a lot of money on weed, which means I'm not spending money on other more important things, or having to do things that are risky, like selling it so that I can afford it. So all these things are coming into my life. So you go back to what I said about determining if something is a sin or not. What is the fruit of it? What is it bringing to your life? It was bringing me health issues. It was bringing me money problems. It was putting me in risky situations to have to deal and be around people selling. It was putting me in a situation to go to jail because it was illegal. Like, this is not the fruit of God. This is not the fruit of the Spirit. And so my habit was pretty bad, and I saw how it was controlling my life. Every day I woke up to smoke, I went to sleep to smoke, and it was ridiculous. And so when I saw that in myself, I wasn't even a Christian then. Um, I was just like, Mom, I was a backsliding Christian, and I don't know if you read my story about how I became a Christian, but I never read the Bible or anything like that. So I knew God was real and I had experience, but I knew nothing at all. So I backslid. But anyway, so so I knew it wasn't good for me. I didn't need anybody to tell me that. I knew it was not good for me. Even though I didn't see the immediate effects of like putting smoke in my lungs and all this type of stuff, I saw how my life was kind of geared towards this one goal of smoking. And it was really damaging other parts of my life. Like I could have been doing much more productive, healthy things than sitting around trying to figure out how I'm gonna smoke weed all day. Yeah. So I said to myself, like, you know what, I need to quit. I need to take a break. I was smoking probably, I would say between 5 to 10 times a day. Yeah, it's a lot. And of course, smoking takes time. So you got to take time. You got to go buy the papers. You got to roll it up. Then after you smoke, now you want to eat. So you got to go get food. Like by the time I was coming down from one high, my my plan was like, okay, let's get ready for the next one because now I got to go find the weed, get the money, taking up a lot of time. So anyway, so I told myself I was gonna stop, and I kept making steps towards stopping, and I think I did, but then it didn't take much time before I was back at it again, and then I saw that this was controlling my behavior, my choices, and so another thing. So I'm talking about all this time I'm spending. So I think I tried to quit a couple times, but then I would start back again. And then one time, and oh, I didn't even talk about the social aspect of smoking because you do find a community of smokers and you guys are like tight because you guys smoke together. And so they just continue to encourage you in that direction because now you having this social outlet and people to kind of commune with, so to speak, because you guys have this common thing that you do. So let me speed it up. So one day I was smoking and I kept telling myself, I'm going to stop, I'm going to stop, I'm going to stop. And I'm sitting in this group of people smoking, and one of them was making fun of the other person, another person, and I'm not going to go into detail, but the other person had their life together for the most part. I mean, they smoked, but they still went to work. They had a house, they had a car, stuff like that. But the other people didn't have, oh, hey, cuz, what's up? So the other people did not have anything. Because the thing that I would definitely say weed does is it makes you lazy. If nothing but for the fact that you're constantly using a lot of your time trying to find weed and smoke weed and hang out and all that type of stuff, you end up wasting a lot of time. And then being high, you want to sit around, you want to have fun. So it makes you lazy. It contributes to this kind of slow progress of whatever you're doing in your life because we only have limited amount of hours in the day and you're wasting like half of it trying to smoke or find weed and all that, the whole thing that comes with it. So I'm sitting in this circle, and I would say more than half this person that they were teasing was the only one in the group. And it was about 10 people. And I was including, when you smoke, you kind of go around and you pass it. This one person was my friend that I brought to the group that the main group didn't know my friend. So they're looking at my friend and they're laughing at him and they're making it seem like he's stupid. And I'm just like, he has himself in my head. He has himself more together than all of you guys. Like, how can you sit up here and talk about him and look at you? Like, none of you guys have cars. You don't have anything. You don't even have regular paying job. And so in my mind, I'm saying this, like, you guys are losers, but you're talking about this guy. And I'm pretty sure it was the Holy Spirit because I doubt it was me. Something came to my mind and said, well, if you're sitting with these people, what does that say about you? I was like, oh, yeah. If these are your friends and this is your community and you sitting up here talking about all of them and how they have nothing, you're sitting with them. So what does that say about you? And it was like a slap in the face. Like, I really had to reevaluate some things and say, like, where am I like these people? Like, no, I think I might be. So I really wanted to take some steps back. Like, no, this is not how I want to live my life. I don't want to be somebody who's the age of these people, because a lot of them were older than me, that don't have anything, that sit around all day smoking. Like, I really was at that moment, I decided that I wanted a different life. And if I wanted a different life, I had to stop smoking. It just, I had to. And so I clearly saw that. Now you might say, well, what about the person that you were with? They were doing this and they were doing that, and they had some stability. And they were still smoking, but they had issues too that were connected to smoking. And I knew my specific issue, because everybody's weaknesses is going to be a little bit different. I knew with my specific issue, with the patterns that I was seeing in myself, that I could not do what I wanted to do with my life and smoke. It was very, very clear to me that I was not going to be able to do that. And so I'm like, okay, that's when I really made in my mind that I was going to stop, that I needed to stop. So did I stop immediately? No, I didn't. so, so there was a process. And so again, I think this is Holy Spirit thing. I wasn't a Christian then. I mean, I knew of God and I knew I wanted to live right at some point, but I was dragging my feet just like a lot of people do. And so I just kept saying, I'm going to quit. So I stopped smoking with that group of people because I wanted to kind of, gradually start working myself back. But I was still smoking with myself and stuff like that. And so every time I would smoke, I would say, this is my last one. This is the last one. I'm going to stop. This is the time I'm going to stop, blah, 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 blah. And so I said it to myself like 5 or 6 times. And so again, I'm smoking to myself now because I'm not smoking with that group, because I'm in my mind, I need to quit. So I'm working towards it. And about the maybe 6th or 7th time that I was about to smoke, and I said to myself, this is my last one. Again, something came to my mind and said, who are you talking to? And I was just like, I'm talking to myself. And the voice or the thought was like, but nobody else is here. So if you're talking to anybody, you must be talking to yourself. And if you keep telling yourself you're going to do something and you're not doing it, then you're lying, and you're lying to yourself. And it's one thing to lie to other people, but it's different when you continuously lie to yourself. You're lying to yourself. If you're going to smoke, then just say you want to smoke. If you're going to stop, then stop. But stop lying to yourself. Like, you are doing yourself a huge disservice by lying to your own self. Like, and that was like a very big smack in the face. And I said, okay, I'm not going to lie to myself. If I'm going to smoke, I'm just going to smoke. And if I'm not going to smoke, and I knew I wanted to stop. So I said, okay, I'm done with the lying. And that day, with the weed that I had left, I flushed it down the toilet, which was huge. Yeah, I just wasted my money, but I flushed it down the toilet and I was done. And I have not smoked since. And it has been over 20 years. Yeah. So yeah, and I have stayed committed to that. I'm not going to lie to myself. I'm not going to smoke. I know the life that I want to live, and I can't take that journey smoking weed. I can't. So that's my story. That's my story of smoking weed, and why I think as Christians we should not be smoking weed. Some people's stories will look different. So last year when I first started my podcast, I did an interview with a pastor who used to smoke weed and do all kind of stuff. And then he gave his story about how he got delivered from drugs and smoking weed, which weed was his drug of choice. And he had to come to conclusions about his own life, about how weed was actually affecting him and what it was bringing to his life, the value or the dysfunction that was bringing to his life. And he had to step away from it. And so you guys can go back and look at that. I'll try to put that video underneath the comments in this post if you're interested in watching it. And so, yeah, so you really have to kind of, have a conversation with yourself about what is weed doing for you. Like I said, I do think that under some very valid reasons, if you're sick and you need it to eat and you need it for pain, but again, that is something that I think you need to seek God for, to find out if that's okay. God might have a different idea for you to have an appetite and for you to be out of pain without you having to get high. So, and a lot of these drugs, so it's not just like people will say, well, weed versus prescriptions or legal prescriptions, getting high, period. Because some people get high on legalized, drugs that are legal. So the point is, you shouldn't be getting high, period. So it doesn't matter if it's legal or illegal or whatever. You should not be getting high as a person, especially as a Christian. And so those are my thoughts on Christians and smoking weed. I have met some Christians who feel like it's okay to smoke weed. I don't necessarily judge them because, as I said in the beginning of this video, some people are just not mature Christians yet, and that's fine. Everybody is in different places of growth, and I think Christians get too hard on Christians, other fellow Christians who just simply need to grow. God gave you the room to grow. I know He gave me the room to grow, and if He didn't, I wouldn't be here. So I'm not gonna like bash on a Christian like because you're in a place where you need to grow. My job is to encourage you along in that growth and not try to make you feel like, oh, something's wrong with you or you're not really saved because you're not floating on clouds with a halo over your head. It just doesn't really work like that. And we need to encourage people like, hey, even people who've been smoking cigarettes for years and they become a Christian and they still smoke cigarettes. Again, you're damaging your body, you're wasting your money. A lot of other stuff goes with that, including wasting your time. And you encourage them. You encourage them and try to let them know that God has something better for them and that they don't necessarily have to take that path and what they're doing to themselves and things like that. So I'm not going to bash on anybody that's smoking weed as a Christian, but I will tell you that you need to grow in your relationship with God and really seek God about what He wants for you in that area. Because I can almost guarantee you He's going to tell you to stop. Yeah. Let me add this. I'm going a little bit past my time, but let me add this. So I really love smoking weed. I will be honest with you, but I knew I needed to stop. And so years later, I said I haven't smoked in 20 years. So a few years ago, I would say within the last 5 years, I was just in like a down rut in my life and kind of bored, I guess you would say. And I started thinking about, I think I can smoke it once. I haven't smoked in 20 years. I think I can smoke it once. Like, I think it's okay. You know how we do, people. We always trying to do stuff. So I was really thinking about, okay, how can I just like do it one time just for fun? I don't think it's a big deal, blah, blah, blah. Over time, your mind just started playing tricks on you. We like to laugh to ourselves. I will say that. And so I'm just like, so I started thinking about how I could get it because I'm totally out of those circles now. I don't even know where to even go to find weed. So I'm just like, okay, how can I find it? Or maybe I can do an edible because that's better than smoking because I don't want my kids to see smoke. So I'm just thinking about all this stuff. And I heard very clearly in my head, God says, stop. You do not need that. It was so strong that I could not deny that it was God. Like, I feel like a kid, like say if a kid or you're sneaking, you're doing something, then a parent walks behind you, say, hey, you jump, like, oh, you're caught. And that's how I feel. I feel like God was just like, no, you don't need that. And I was just like, okay, I know I don't. And then I started thinking about it. I'm like, yeah, I don't need that. Like, what if it starts to have it all up again? What if I go get it from somebody and, something, I get busted? I was just like, you're right. I don't need that. I apologized and repented for my thoughts. And then I just moved away from it. And so even later, I had people, Christians, saying, hey, you can smoke. It's okay, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, no, I very clearly heard God tell me you don't need that. And I personally cannot do something that God clearly told me not to do. Like, my conscience would eat me alive. So I was like, no, I'm going to have to pass on that. Was I tempted? Yes. But I didn't do it because I know God told me, no, you don't need that. And I wanted to kind of be obedient. I wanted to be obedient and do what He said. So I'm saying that to say, even if you feel like you need marijuana for medical purposes, ask God. That's what I'm saying. Don't just lean on that, because if you're unwilling to ask God, then that means you want to get high. And that's why you don't want to ask God. But if you really are looking for it to make sure you're in alignment with God in what you're doing, and you even want better solutions to maybe where you don't have to smoke it, then you will ask. You will say, okay, God, I really need this for blah, 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 and kind of let Him give you some direction. I'm trying to burp, but it won't come out. Give you some direction and feedback on some alternatives of what you can do. So that's my little spiel on marijuana and Christianity and marijuana. If you guys have any, feedback or questions or anything like that, let me know. I can get some scriptures for you. Like I said, I don't like to do that because I don't want this to be a Bible study. I want it to be a conversation. And but I can give you that if you're looking for it. So that's it. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up for today. And next week, I want to talk about tattoos, piercings, and stuff like that when it comes to Christianity and my take on that. So if you guys are interested in that topic, make sure you tune in for that. And other than that, you guys, everybody have a great weekend, and I will see you next week, next Friday at 11 o'clock. Thank you so much. Be blessed and have a good day. A good weekend. I said that already. Okay. Bye.